Since our goal is to eventually use Bitcoin in everyday life, not just as a store of value, but as something a little bit more practical, let's explore the options that we have as Bitcoin holders for how to pay and transact with Bitcoin, in other words, making payments. So there are smaller and larger types of payments. Let's talk about the differences. For large payments, thousands and thousands of dollars, other cryptocurrencies tend to be much better because Bitcoin will have some of the highest transaction fees and it will be slower, and it's just not a good option for large payments because you can pay literally a penny or less if you transact with XRP or Solana or even stablecoins. But for small everyday transactions, like buying something at local vendors, tipping people, or basically transacting wherever people accept Bitcoin, there is such a thing as a Lightning Network, which is another layer built on top of Bitcoin that allows people to send small transactions quickly and with small fees, making the Bitcoin Lightning Network a pretty good and sometimes an ideal payment option for sending small or relatively small amounts. For that, of course, you'll need a Lightning Network compatible wallet, which we'll talk about in a second. But before I get into that, there's also the option of mid-size payments. And what if people want price stability? Like 1 minute Bitcoin is a certain price, the next minute it's a 1% different. For some people, that doesn't matter because it's a relatively small change. But many people actually want price stability because you can't really do business when your currency is unstable. Now, you can get philosophical in that no currency is stable and all currencies have intraday fluctuations of their value, including the dollar and euro, but that's a different conversation. For us, when we're talking about cryptocurrency, we want to consider the option of another cryptocurrency, which are stablecoins, which provide price stability because they are pegged one-to-one to the US dollar. And so when you send $1 worth of stablecoins, you know the other person is getting $1 worth of stablecoins. So in many cases, that can be a better option, especially in mid-size transactions. So the question becomes, how do you decide? Should you use stablecoins, Bitcoin? Sometimes it's as simple as the merchant you're dealing with may only accept Bitcoin or may only accept stablecoins. So you sometimes don't have an option. You don't have a choice sometimes. The merchant may not accept all options. If the merchant does accept different options and the merchant wants stability, no volatility, then you have to pay with stable coins. If your merchant wants BTC, which is generally a better asset to hold than a stable coin, the Lightning Network is fine because you are creating a kind of a headache for the vendor possibly because they might have to transfer out of their stable coin and get BTC, so you'd be saving them a step. Also, for micropayments, like under $5 worth, you get such low fees that the Lightning Network for Bitcoin is one of the ideal payments for that case. But for slightly bigger amounts, like let's say over $5, maybe stable coins, because you don't want you or the vendor to lose out on any volatility of Bitcoin. But also sometimes there are just practical considerations, like you have a lot of Bitcoin, maybe you bought it when it was a penny, now it's $100,000 or more. Okay, you need to start using it somehow. You have too much. And so you can start using it for easier taxes. You probably want to use stable coins. But sometimes when you transact at different merchants, the Bitcoin Lightning Network can be easier to deal with because very often the merchants will have a QR code terminal that you can just use and instantly pay them with one tap, which actually offers great convenience. So you see, you can pay with many options, stable coins, Bitcoin, even other cryptocurrencies, but different situations have slightly different nuances, which calls for different types of cryptocurrency to be used then. So of course, after this video, you'll be prepared or at least understand which payment scenarios are ideal for which cryptocurrencies. Now, since we're talking about Bitcoin Lightning wallets, let's go over a number of them that are popular. But before I do that, I want to, of course, mention that I have no business relationship with any of these vendors. In fact, to be completely objective, instead of recommending one, I went to perplexity.ai and asked which Bitcoin Lightning wallets are most popular. Share some statistics if you haven't. And so I'm just going to read what the AI recommended so that there's no bias from me. As you can see here, Wallet of Satoshi, a wallet called Mun, Phoenix Wallet, Blue Wallet, and Zeus. And by the time you get to that, there are enough options here for most of us. Now, what's the most important part that you should consider when choosing a wallet? You see here it says Blue Wallet, and it has, you see, both custodial and non-custodial options. The concept of a custodial versus a non-custodial wallet is actually really important. If you want simplicity and immediate use, custodial wallets like the Wallet of Satoshi and other custodial wallets allow instant setup with no need for backups, no need for you to handle security, anything like that. See, custodial means they have the custody of your private keys, which is not generally recommended. But if you're a beginner user of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, you actually want your wallet to safely and securely handle your keys. Now, once you gain a little bit of experience and comfort in cryptocurrency, especially cryptocurrency security and holding on to your private keys, you want to get into a non-custodial wallet because you have more control over the security. If you trust yourself, non-custodial wallet. If you don't trust yourself, custodial wallet. Generally speaking, all of these are pretty user-friendly, but the big consideration is whether you're going to choose a custodial versus a non-custodial wallet. So I'll slowly scroll through a few of these so that we read their pros and cons. Wallet of Satoshi, custodial. It's a mobile-first application. It's very simple, great for beginners. So great for first-time or casual users. Mun is a little bit opposite, non-custodial. And then I'll just slowly scroll to the others so you can read their benefits. You don't need me to read the benefits on the screen for you. But what's interesting is some of them offer both a custodial and a non-custodial option like the Blue Wallet. But again, if you're starting out, Wallet of Satoshi is probably a good option for you just because of simplicity and the mobile-first friendliness. So these are the options for leading Bitcoin Lightning wallets.